Everybody is talking about the metaverse, but no one really knows how it will end up, as it's not just adding an AR, VR, or NFT component. How can startups, SMEs, corporates jump on this opportunity? The Metaverse, a bubble or a new reality, is the title of the next session. Please welcome Mr. Bashar Kilani, Managing Director at Accenture, Middle East, and the moderator for this session. Mr. Ibrahim Badawi, Founder and CEO at O1Gov. And Mr. Zoran Lazarevic, Chief Technology Officer for Market Area Middle East and Africa at Ericsson.
Good morning, Metaverse crowd. So we've seen the transformation into the Metaverse. I think we need to change the name of this session to something like the Metaverse is here. Do you have a strategy? Because I think we're beyond the point of is it a bubble or not. And I think just to clear the myth here, the Metaverse is a very natural thing with the conversion of the technologies that happened recently. And I think COVID did one thing, it's a horrible thing, but it brought these things together quicker and faster. So we're talking about compute power with cloud, we're talking about VR, AR, and you've seen how far this has come today. We're talking about data and AI, and of course we're talking about bandwidth that enables all of that to happen. So it's really with us, and the internet is going through the next evolution. So we started with the internet of data, then we moved into the internet of people with social media. We're now in the internet of things, where we order Ubers and have delivery and have sensors and things in our hand. And we're moving to the internet of places and the internet of ownership. And that's a big shift in the way we're interacting with each other today. So this is seen to be a huge business opportunity. The Metaverse by 2030 will bring to the world an economy the size of Japan. It's a huge market opportunity for the business and for the world. Today, countries, companies, businesses are starting to put together strategies for the Metaverse. Dubai announced a Metaverse strategy, and it's a very clear one with clear outcomes. So $4 billion of incremental GDP by 2030, 42,000 jobs, and 4 areas of focus. Tourism, and we've seen what can be done with events in the Metaverse. Today, Dubai's population in the Metaverse is equal to that of China or India, so it's a very competitive market. Digital twins for the city and the attractions that you see there. Government services, transformation on real estate, and education. These are the 4 transformational industries that Dubai will focus on in order to create the incremental GDP that they are talking about. In Accenture, we got into the Metaverse due to the pandemic. During the pandemic, we hired 150,000 consultants from all over the world, and we created a virtual campus. We call it One Accenture Park, and we used it to onboard these consultants, upskill and cross-skill, and today it's become a place where these people just hang out to meet and talk and exchange information and ideas. During the World Economic Forum last May, we created a digital twin for the global environment, so we were able to host some of the world leaders and immerse them in an environment that showed climate change in 50 years. So that was an experience that helped them understand the impact of decisions they make today on the future and how that is actually changing the climate around us. They were standing in the data, in the context, and they got an immersive experience on what this really means. So the VR, AR part of the Metaverse is big, but I think the bigger part is really the Web3 underlying technology. And Today, it's a $130 billion industry, which is the in-gaming industry. We've seen examples of how these young people come to parents and ask for a credit card to buy tokens that enable them to get features and functions. They create value inside the game by competing and playing. And recently, Roblox provided a platform where they have access to a McDonald's outlet, so you can actually play with virtual tokens for real burgers that will be delivered to your home. So that's where digital and physical are coming together. The building blocks of the metaverse are very simple. It's digital twins. And we've seen examples now of digital twins for people, which is the avatars. And there's an industry around it today, from Nike and shoes and content and everything that goes with it. And that's a key component of that industry. The second digital twin is for processes, where we simulate processes and use data and AI model to understand the impact and transformation and how that all will be put in place. Imagine supply chain processes and things like that. But the biggest, by far, business opportunity is on digital twins for assets. Cities, manufacturing plants, refineries, retail stores, all these assets where you can now replicate the real physical experience, where you can build data models and create simulations, where you can scale at a size that you never had before. So we're really shaping a new world here that is going to transform the way we do business and also where we live. And I think it's very important here to also understand how important it is to be responsible when we shape this new world. And that's why the topic of metaverse and responsible metaverse is key. And I think there are two important elements to discuss here. One is having trust in the environment that you're working in, and that means privacy, security, IP protection, and so on, but also managing the human element of it. We're talking here about well-being, safety, but in my view, most important is inclusion and equity. We've seen a digital divide created by the internet, and probably the digital divide created by the metaverse is going to be bigger. So it's important for us to shape and reimagine this new world in a way that really gets us the most benefit out of this. I'm pleased to have two of my distinguished colleagues, and we'll talk specifically about two things. One is the infrastructure that's required to make this thing happen, and the other one is actually the applications that go with it. So with that, no? Now you can. Okay, so it works. What do we need to make this work for us?
No, I think you started also saying that it's reality. So I think that's...
Yeah, we can't hear you.
You cannot hear me? Is it better now? Yeah. I said you started saying that this is already reality, what we see here. And I think it's also important to align what we understood under metaverse. We've seen a most example here, completely virtual world avatars, but I think we should also look a little bit wider picture, like a mixture of virtual reality and physical world, something which we got from augmented reality use cases. And that's widely already planned to use or already used in industry. Or if you look at digital twins, like copy of physical world in the virtual world, which is fully synchronized, which is already used. We at Ericsson, we are using digital twins to test our radio equipment. So it's definitely already there. How fast it will be adopted depends on technology, depends on these virtual reality glasses, augmented reality glasses. We need those technology, these glasses to be lighter, to be more powerful so that we can use them in everyday life. And here, infrastructure plays a role. I was saying that we need them to be more powerful, we need them to be more lighter. It looks a little bit contradicting. More powerful means more cheap, more batteries. and it's definitely not light. And this is where network can help us. Networks can offload some of this processing power to be back on the network so that we can make those glasses more powerful and more light. And this is where network will help. Those usage of network actually will demand also, will create demand on the networks. So the networks need to be fast, have low latency. They need to have a lot of capacity, particularly uplink capacity. When we were saying low latency that we already have, but also it should be guaranteeing low latency. What we're seeing with Metaverse, the spikes that it is very low latency, and then for the moment it jumps, that will create unpleasant experiences. So network great law to develop Metaverse, but also then once it is developed, it will impact the network. With bigger adoption, we're going to need higher capacity, we're going to need more of quality of service to fulfill, so it's going to be both directions will impact each other.
Thank you. I think when I look at the world map, it's these countries and places that have 5G coverage or very fast 4G that are going to have a distinct advantage in this new world. Ibrahim, as we move from the Internet of Things to the Internet of Places and the Internet of Ownership, a lot of what we have today can be represented in a digital token. My passport, my driver's license, my car ownership, these are all kind of tokens given to me by the government or the constitution or the environment that I work and live in, and they can be represented in such a way. Away from the VR, AR, and more focusing on the tokenization and smart contracts components of this, what does this really mean to us?
Thank you so much for asking this important question. And to answer it, I would like to take you all to yesterday morning. This forum itself was inaugurated by the Prime Minister of Jordan, talking to us through his virtual avatar in a virtual world that's created by a Jordanian startup, which is a reminder for us, again, talk about this and ask a question, what role can government or should government play in enabling such applications and use cases? And the answer can be multifaceted. However, one thing I would like to focus on is reminding ourselves that government should always stay focused on their why. Like, why are we even engaged in this? One answer, or one example, one story I would like to share with you is Metaverse, which is basically a metaverse created by the government of Catalonia. Now, why did the government of Catalonia start investing in creating their own metaverse? The ultimate goal is to preserve the Catalan language, culture, and identity. And if you know enough about the geopolitics there, you know that this is a key issue for society there. And it's totally understood that different governments, different societies can have different priorities. However, it's always the same. The only job for a government is to provide public value, to enable societies to flourish and citizens to have a better life. Now, reflecting on MENA region, we need to remember that we're not talking about one big homogeneous block. In this region, we have places like Dubai, as you mentioned, Bashar, they are actively trying to regulate virtual assets. We have places like Jordan, in which a startup is creating a virtual world. However, in the same MENA region, we have many places in which people still struggle in accessing life basics like electricity. In the same region, we still have governments or public institutions who are still processing the idea of sharing their data openly with the public, so startups can create solutions and so on. So coming back to your question, I think governments can play a key role here. It's just before jumping into the wave of metaverse, because I've seen this before. We've been through a series of waves of new technologies or buzzwords, AI, blockchain, big data, and so on. The question for government is, what is our why here? What are we trying to achieve here? And then after investing some time in finding an answer on that, we can discuss the what and the how and the details.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Zoran, this is a game of digital twins. And when we talk enterprise, when we talk business, I think it's all about creating a digital twin based on a data model that we can use to simulate, transform, attract, and so on. Give me a little bit of an insight as to what does it take to build a digital twin, how easy it is to integrate it, and what's the underlying infrastructure and foundation for that?
No, you're absolutely right, and I was saying that it's great you already use digital trends in industries. And I think Ericsson thinks that this is going to be actually foundation for 6G. When we are planning architecture now and what's the vision for 6G, it's going to be a combination of physical and cyber worlds, completely mixture of physical and cyber worlds. What does it mean? That means that we're going to have thousands of sensors in the real world which are going to collect information, build that image which is going to be fully synchronized, virtual image which is going to be synchronized with the physical world, and then we're going to hardly distinguish what is the difference between physical world and digital world. So, I mean, that's happening, and what we have now, 5G, it's greatly can support. If we are talking about those two technology, one is XR VR devices, one is network, greatly supported with 5G. I believe that 5G is a little bit ahead. It can support at the moment, but how we're having bigger adoption, probably 5G will need to grow. And then we're going to come to that 6G, we're going to have complete mixture of physical and cyber world.
Excellent, thank you. Ibrahim, digital is functionally accurate, it's correct, and people have got used to it, but the metaverse gives us the human element, so we can actually enhance the digital experience today with a human one to try and kind of get close to the real one. How will that change the interactions, the culture, the transformation that we're working on?
I think the answer is the key words you just said. We're talking about human to human interaction, we're talking about culture. Now, going back to the story of Metaverse from Catalonia, in the process of creating a metaverse that can preserve the Catalan language and culture, the entire experience being built by partners from the local society, startups and research center. The entire metaverse, Metaverse, is available in Catalan language, mainly. Now, I'm thrilled to see the demo we saw today and yesterday, a metaverse that's created by a startup from Jordan. Please give them another round of applause for the work. Yeah. However, there is a however part here. I couldn't help by noticing that in the metaverse they created, Abdurrahman, Hassan, Muna, they were all talking in a foreign language. And right now, in this session, in this forum, most of the sessions I attended at least, we're speaking in a language that's not the main language of most of the people in the room, including the speakers. Now, this happens mainly only in MENA region. In my travels, and I think that's your experience as well, around the world, people, a very natural way, they speak their mother language. To me, this is a symptom of a much, much deeper challenge and problem in the way we approach technology in MENA region. Now, Metaverse is an opportunity for us to pause and think about that. In order to have a sustainable success that benefit all the parties, starting with the people of the region here, we need to connect deeply with our own local culture, starting with the language. Metaverse, I mean, blockchain, Web3, AI, and the likes might be the technical engine of Metaverse, but it's about human connecting to human. And it's really hard to connect with humans if we don't speak the language, if we don't celebrate our local culture. And I think no better place than Jordan in the region to talk about that, knowing that this country is a homeland of pioneers who have been for decades actively enabling Arabic content and Arabic character in the digital world. So this is a new opportunity again for Jordan to lead, to keep leading in enabling Arabic language and culture in the virtual world.
Great, thank you. I wanted to see if we can take a question from the audience, but I don't think we're set up to do this. So I'll ask Zoran and Ibrahim another question. One is, and I think the question is about responsible metaverse. What can be done to make this more inclusive and give as many people around the world access to the metaverse. As we heard, there are already 3 billion gamers out of the 8 billion that we have in this part of the world, but we want to cover the other 4 billion if we can.
No, you covered two things. You mentioned two things. Of course, this is to have this. We were saying 3 billion people are not connected. So that's what we first need to achieve. But you also mentioned other things that we need to have privacy, safety with metaverse, and that's a big topic. I was mentioning 6G. I mean, it's a mixture between physical and digital world. So we're having a copy of physical world all the time. But question of having technology which we trust and believe is super important. It's super important for metaverse. It's super important for AI. So I think how we are succeeding in those two will define how fast we're going to have adoption. Of course, we need to have connectivity to cover the digital divide, but also we need to have technology which we can fully trust.
Thank you. And I think this leads us to the next question, Ibrahim. We will live in a world that is different from the one we have today. We have now digital assets, virtual assets. We've got smart contracts that keep on connecting and giving. And I know Dubai already initiated a virtual assets regulating authority, and that's a starting point. But really we need to be open to the mindset that we will have to reimagine a lot of our interactions and relationships, the commercial ones as well as the human ones. Give us some insight on how we reimagine this new world.
Yeah, I think the challenge is that we have to reimagine, because the journey of digitization started in, let's say, 3-4 decades ago, at least with the rise of the web. But then now we're reaching a point in which most of our lives, or increasing part of our life, is happening online or in a virtual world. But also great part of our life happens offline, in a physical interaction. For me, we should aim that on the long run, we should avoid creating a parallel world and aim at not only digital by design, but virtual by design, let's say. Of course, this has to go hand in hand with the progress happening in technology, technologies like 5G and the likes. But basically, I think aiming at duplicating a physical world, creating a version of it online, doesn't help much. I'll give you an example of probably an easier situation here. When lockdown happened, 2020, we moved to remote work. Now, people started working from their homes, and then issues arose. Many employees were complaining that their manager were expecting them to be up and having a Zoom meeting at 7:30 in the morning, right? Why? Well, they used to have that meeting in the office. What was missing here is that for many organizations, they forgot that when you move the people from office to their homes, we gained some affordances or utilities, like you can work from the comforting place, let's say, but we lost some of them. In the office, we have unified infrastructure, the same office, the same internet, and so on. But when you go work from your place, then here things change. Not all the people have the same level of access to internet, and then some people have, especially women, parents, let's say, some of them have to handle schooling, homeschooling, and others. So not everyone actually is available to have a meeting at 7:30 in the morning. But because we did not approach remote work as a new experience that is digital by design, issues happen. The same thing is, I think, can happen again. If we approach the virtual world or metaverse with the intention to simply recreate it, we will miss the whole point here. I prefer reimagine or redesign, and here we need to start by a blank canvas. And remember, this is a virtual world. And I think here connecting with the younger generation can help. Because for us, we lived both eras, before the internet and the internet era. But the younger generation, the emerging generation now, they only know one word. Right? That is the digital and the virtual world.
Thank you, Ibrahim. I think great ideas on what the metaverse means. It's here. And I think the wise thing for every organization today is to start to think of a strategy, of what that means for their business and their way forward. With that, I want to thank my colleagues Zoran and Ibrahim for a great conversation, and I think we just made it on time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.